Hey everybody, hope you are all doing very well out there. In this video, we're going to be talking all about the dangers of divination, tarot, the dangers of astrology, the dangers of runes, oracle cards, angel cards, fairy cards, pendulums, mediumship, scrying, any and all modes of divination where you are working to open up the world of spirit, the world of the psychic and the non-physical to gain information about the past, present, or future, and use that information or take that information on. Because it is a dangerous practice, and it is something that needs to have the respect and the care and the discipline that we attribute to any kind of full contact martial art. I mean, you acknowledge when you're cooking that a hot stove is dangerous. When you are working on your car, you are acknowledging that you need to make sure that the jack is secure. If you are working with maybe some kind of woodworking project, you have to acknowledge that it may be toxic to have this chemical or this epoxy or this finish on your skin. You certainly don't want to take it into your body, or a sharp tool, and so on and so forth. So acknowledging the dangers of something, is just a part of the art. It's a part of the work. It doesn't mean that we don't do it. It's not that we don't practice full contact martial arts. It's not that we don't cook. It's not that we don't work in the garage or work in the shed or work with, potentially hazardous materials sometimes. We just need to know how to respect them. And that is what I want to talk about in this video. I have seen, especially more prevalently over the years, divination in general messing a lot of people up, especially when it comes to their mental health. That being said, if I haven't made it perfectly clear, I'm not saying that any kind of divination is bad, right? I'm not splitting into black and white thinking, just because something's dangerous or hazardous doesn't mean it's evil, right? That would not be a sound mind to practice or receive readings, both in practitioners and in people who receive consultations. You might call them consumers or clients or their clientele. Perhaps the biggest danger that I see most often play out and manifest itself when it comes to readings has nothing to do with spiritual danger or spiritual hazards, right? We're not talking about things like curses or entities or hauntings or psychic attacks or things like that, but really what happens to the story of the person receiving the information, whether they are performing the divination on themselves, right, reading for themselves, or they are getting the reading from somebody else. A dependence on astrology or tarot or runes or any kind of divinatory art, oracle, ogham, it doesn't matter, to be a constant sponsor in their life path, or a constant companion for every decision, every choice point, every action, proaction, or reaction that they are going to give. And what ends up happening, and this is true for anybody, eventually the tarot, the astrology, whatever you're working with, will not be able to help you. Because there is something forgotten in a mentality like that, right? Where it becomes a dependence, right? Oh, I have to, before I do anything, I need to consult this. Or before I have this conversation, I need to pull out my tarot cards. Or I have to pull out my astrology. Or I have to look and see what's going on the planets today. Or let me get my pendulum. If you become so dependent on that, or you're only using this for strategic advantages consistently, eventually you will be set up to fail. And the reason you will be set up to fail is because if you are not evolving with the changes that are occurring in your life, as in you've only adopted or stolen the information you've received from spirit to get you from point A to point B, to point B to point C, you will eventually get tested. Divination tools get you to the moment where you are tested before you get what you want. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Tarot and astrology and all of that good stuff, it's not presenting a fate set in stone that you can coast with, right? Fate is not set in stone. Fate is a tide. We do have free will. So when the tide comes in, what do you do with that tide? Do you stay on the beach, wade in the water? Do you get off the beach, get back in the car and go home? Do you take a boat, go out to sea? Do you climb on a rock and wait for it to pass? Are you on the beach at all? Right? Did you even come that day? All of those things come into play when it comes to how you are going to navigate the events and the guidance that you are being given through divination. However, if you are in a situation where play by play, you are constantly consulting cards and tarot and astrology for what you need to do next, eventually you will be set in a situation where you have access to none of them. The test that comes from that, it's not here as a tool to give you advantages so that you can sneak around or manipulate odds or manipulate people or to sneak yourself into situations that you are not a match for. If you are in a time or a space where a mismatch is allowed for a while to see what can happen, can it reconcile itself, then maybe you can keep that position or that situation or that relationship or that circumstance going for a little while. But eventually, sometimes sooner, sometimes less sooner, forces will come along and enforce transition. This can show up in the form of there just being constant hell in that situation, right? In that job, in that career, in that living situation, in that relationship, in that project, or whatever is going on, especially if it was either gotten through manipulation, falsity, or through a lack of consistent growth or maturity or evolution driven down paths that are obviously not serving the highest interest of all concerned. And remember, Spirit doesn't see us for the wounds or the broken motivations. It doesn't judge us either. It just doesn't care either way. It does come back to enforce harmony, right? Cosmos over chaos. It's kind of like cheating on tests to the point where you have to suddenly, at the end of the term, demonstrate your own integration of that information, right? Without help, without any lifelines, without tarot, without astrology, without somebody feeding you lines and dictation and strategies. And if you are the same person you were when you started, at the end, you are getting set up to fail by yourself. It's just that tarot and divination and astrology and even, spiritual guidance, through your intuition will not interfere with your free will. No one's going to stop you from doing a bad thing to yourself. That requires personal accountability, personal responsibility, and self-control. Kind of like deciding that you are going to cheat your way into a high-level martial arts school, right? You might be fibbing on your resume. You might be fibbing having a certain color belt or a certain degree, and all of a sudden you've got to go into a sparring match and you get your ass kicked. Or you lie on your resume, your qualifications for a job, and then you get fired in a month because that wasn't meant for you. Or you manipulated a relationship situation into coming forth into being. Eventually, it will fall apart. This is not an art that is for everybody, right? It takes a very disciplined, a very honest, and very mature temperament, and a spiritually responsible temperament to work with these arts well. And that, to me, is the biggest danger when it comes to divination of any sort. We'll come back in another video and talk about some other dangers, but I'd be curious to see how people feel about this. If there's anything that came up in this video you would like me to expand upon, anything that really stood out to you, or any questions you may have that you think I might be able to answer in a video about divination in general, or maybe for those of you who are looking to maybe be a reader yourself or go in as a client, some tools for clients when it comes to discernment. I'd be happy to make a video. Let me know what you think in the down bar below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And of course, if you ever want to get a tarot or astrology reading from me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com.